Hi, I'm Jason Radford, and today I want to talk to you about the CITB transcription task. So here I am at my test team. I'm going to go to Add New Clone Experiment, and I'm going to select the CITB transcribing task. I'll give it a name, JT Transcription, Jason Test. And now I have a copy of the transcription task that I can work with. So on the Demo tab, I can press Launch and demo it as a single participant. If I set this to 3, I could pretend to be 3 people. Go over to Manage Files and see the files that are associated with this experiment. I can go in and update any of these files to change the experiment to work however I want. The Manage Variables tab has a list of variables that you can customize easily without having to go in and changing any of the code, which I'll talk about in a second. And the last thing I want to point to is this Export Data tab, which allows you to, of course, export the data being generated by participants. So let's go back to these variables. The collective intelligent task battery tasks all involve both a problem or the task and a chat box for the participants to talk to one another about the problem. In this case, if you set chat channel matrix to all, that chat channel is going to be a single channel where everybody can talk to everybody else. But if you want, you can change that by setting this dictionary to be the channels that individuals are talking on. So in this case, player 1 is talking on channel 1 and 2, player 2 is talking on channel 1, and player 3 is talking on channel 2. And they'll see different buttons for channel 1 and channel 2. Player 2 will see a grayed out version of the button 1. They won't be able to access chat channel 2. Player 2 won't be able to access chat channel 2, but they'll see a grayed out button. And just so you know, the format has to be this sort of bracketed dictionary looking thing. You could put in whatever matrix you want. It could be any size, any level of complexity. If there isn't a participant 3, then there's just there's no second participant on channel 2, for example. So that's how you update the chat channel. I'll just set it back to all for convenience. Next are the countdowns. So the transcription task is unique in that it has 4 countdowns instead of 3. It has the normal instructions countdown, the experiment countdown, and then the results countdown. But it also has an identifying countdown. And the reason for that is that there's a period before people start actually transcribing the text, where we need to be able to link the different players to the different contributors. So we use Google Docs as a way of allowing people to simultaneously write in a document. And Google Docs assigns everybody a random identifier, and we just need this identifying process to link player 1 to their appropriate identifier. So you usually want to set this to 20 to 30 seconds, and this allows people to sort of understand what's going on and put in their identifying text and allow volunteer science and Google to communicate with one another to match up those identifiers. For now, I'll set it to 10 seconds just to demo the interface. But of course, there's the instructions, which again, we recommend at least 60 seconds for people to read and understand what's going on. The experiment itself, this is a lot of text. I think it probably would take 10 to 20 minutes to write everything. So we get teams between 2 and 5 minutes. This allows for a lot of variation in terms of how much text teams get. And lastly, the results, 10 seconds is fine. It's just the number of words they get correct. One of the other sort of unique things about the transcription task is that the work that volunteer science does to pull the data out of Google and then do that text matching to see what text should be there versus what text they actually got there and who did what takes quite a while. And it will vary a little bit based on people's internet connection and how easy it is to get the amount of text they put in back out of Google. And you'll see that in a second. But I may actually be able to show you the results page just for the sake of time, because like I say, it takes somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute for this to sync up. So you'll see all that in a minute. Next is the next experiment variable, and this is what you set to determine what task people do after this particular task. So with the task battery, you do one task and the next task and the next task, and this is just how you control which task they go to next. If you leave it blank, then that means this is the last task. They won't do anything else. The study ends. And lastly is this show instructions true variable. If you set it to true, people will see the instructions. If you set it to false, people won't see the instructions. And this just allows you to rapidly update and test your study without having to go through the instructions every time. So while you're testing, you can set this to false and see how your experiment is doing. Once you're ready to go back to recruiting participants, set it to true so they get the instructions. Okay, I think everything is set the way that I want to set it for the sake of demoing. So let me go ahead and launch this. Yeah, so all of these tasks start with the instructions. You've got the purpose, the scoring, and then this is a bit more convoluted in terms of how to play it and how it would count as a valid answer. So I have a secret text phrase on the top left. Click this button to verify. It reads that I typed adder. So now it knows that player one is whatever the ID is. Tiradades. We'll see if that. Oh, the capitalization matters. I don't think I'll get any of it right. So now what's happening is volunteer scientists trying to pull the data from Google to see which player did what, and then match the text to the text that was actually written to then calculate a score. This takes forever because it's not actually easy to figure out where the text is in the document history. So I may end up quitting out of here just for the sake of time. But you'll be able to do this. Like I say, it takes like 30 seconds to a minute. So if you do it, you'll get the result. But I'll back out for the sake of time. So now I want to show you the files. So this is where you can go in and change whatever you want with this study. There are a lot of files. A lot of them are boilerplate files. So this first one, this one HTML file transcribing, it's just the interface. This is the timer area, so that's where the clock is. I need to get rid of this free section. There's an instructions page, and I'll show you where the instructions actually where the instruction text actually comes from in a second. And then you have the transcribing area where you're typing, and the status area, the verification area. There's like a lot of the little pieces are all sort of here in these little chunks. The chat area. So if you want to change the way anything's laid out, the order of things, you can do that here. Countdown is a utility script handling the clocks. You should probably never have to touch that. Data collection, every CITB task has a data collection JS file that controls what data we keep track of. This one may not be used substantively because a lot of the data collection happens when pulling data from Google. But this is where we actually take the data that's pulled from Google and save it for the individual participants and for the whole team as a whole. Yeah, it looks like some of the Google polling data, Google polling stuff comes here, but I think most of it comes here. Google Docs.js. So this is by far the most complicated of the tasks. If you go to look at the other ones, there are fewer files. This is really getting into the nitty gritty of how Google Docs works and the API for Google. So just be careful when you do this stuff. It's finicky. There's not a lot of documentation. Feel free to reach out for help if you want to really dig into the Google Docs stuff. This is actually archived. We're not using this. This is the identifying text. So remember I had to type adder at the very beginning of this. This supports up to like 26 simultaneous players. So you have 26 people doing this at a time if you really wanted to. If you want to have more, you could just add more here. These are the instruction text. So if you want to change the instructions that people see, you can change the text here, where you have the images plus some description of what's in the images. You can update those here. Network chat, again, is a utility script for handling the chat system. Generally won't be touching that. Text colors for players, again, seed random. Also, utility functions. This is for randomization. Study links, that's actually archived. Template structure. So this is the core set of functions that are used across the task battery. So it handles the countdowns, it handles what happens between countdowns, handles any images. It's just sort of a generic set of functions. What you want to do here is for anything that is a generic change to the CITB, you're probably going to find it here in this template structure JS. If you want to change the text that people are transcribing, you just need to change this. It'll automatically check for corrections. You don't have to change anything else. If you change the text, it'll look for the words in this text with capitalization and spacing and all that stuff. So this is how you can change the text that people are transcribing. If you wanted to do the numeric version of this, which is just transcribing this string of numbers, you change this here, but you'll also need to change the matching to, because right now we're just assuming words, and so you're looking at like chunk it up by spaces and then looking at the individual words between the spaces. You'll want to tweak that a bit, which I think happens here in transcribing.js, which are the specific functions and utility functions for the transcribing experiment. So this is where I think a lot of the where this experiment actually calls a lot of these Google Docs JS functions. So yeah, so there's a verified identification function here in the template, which actually does the like checking whether you typed in add or and updating the interface, all that stuff. So transcribing.js and template structure.js are the two files that are probably changed the most if you're going back into the engine here and trying to make this work in a very different way. If you're tweaking things, you'll probably tweak those too, but then you'll also maybe update the instructions. Lastly, you have these CSS files, which just change the way things look. I think that's it. Let's see if there's any other. Yeah, there's a random text file, which also has the text, but that's deprecated. We're not using that. Right, and here are the images that have been uploaded that you could use for the instructions. Just upload your own images. They'll show up here. You can see them. Make sure they look okay. All right, so the last thing I'll show you is just posting this online for people to take it as sort of a prelude to how do you get these tasks linked up together. So you want to click this admin button, which will open up the experiment admin interface. I've already opened it up here for the sake of time. It just opens up this page. You'll see your team name. I'm just doing a tutorial here, so I have a tutorial team name. I'll add a category, and I'm going to give it the name. I don't know if you can see this because it's a pop-up. Test, what is this? Test transcription. Test transcription. The description, hello. We'll change later. So now I've created this tile on our CITB tutorial page. If I just right click and open up a new tab, take you to the page where these studies are hosted. And then this is the tile. Right now there's no experiment associated with the tile. It's just a pretty looking tile. And now what I want to do is go find my JT transcription task. Add it. And now when I click this, it'll start the transcription task. As you can see, I've done a couple of tutorials already. So we're almost done. We're almost done with all of the tutorials that we need to then do chaining. All right, I will see you at the next tutorial.